Hello everybody, welcome to my Tenmaku Cinema, Chapter 5 review. This chapter is titled, On Her Beach. Now, last time in the good old world of Tenmaku Cinema, we had a whole chapter about location scouting as Hajime and Tenmaku went out to scout out Tokyo to shoot some scenes, or not shoot some scenes, but pretty much plan out how they're going to shoot some scenes and just scout the general locations. We had a really cool moment where Tenmaku rewrote a part of the script that, rewrote a part of the script of the shore in influence of an idea that Hajime had. And at the end of the chapter, we saw Kurai was there, and she was going to go with Hajime and Tenmaku to do some more location scouting on the next day. And that's sort of where we start the chapter, but first we start off with a really cool cover page. Of course, this is where we get the authors, who are of course Yuta Tsukuda and Shun Chieki, the title of the series, Tenmaku Cinema, and the scene number, which they call Chapter Scenes 5 on her beach. And we pretty much just get narration saying, location hunting, otherwise known as location scouting, scoping out locations that fit the imagery of the script, is an important process fundamental of filmmaking. As we see a really cool sort of visual here, which has both Hajime and Tenmaku in like Sherlock Holmes attire, right? Like that sort of old English sort of coat, pants, boots, and hats to go with it. As we see that they both have cameras and they also both have double-barrel shotguns with them, sort of fitting that location hunting idea. And also there's a dog here in the background. It's just a really cool visual that I really dig, right? But then we cut to the actual part of the chapter where Kurai, Hajime, and Tenmaku are location scouting on the beach, right? Narration just saying 2 hours from Tokyo by train. Director Hajime Shinichi led actress Himike Kuraki to scout out locations for the shore. As Hajime's here, he's just like, just a train fare one way costs 2,000 yen. I wonder if this counts as a movie research club expense, right? As Kurai's just like, oh hey, Director Shinichi, look, there's a wonderful balance between the sandy and rocky areas, and good shooting angles, right? I think we can use this location, right? As Hajime's just like, Kurai, try not to be so obvious, right? If people realize you're a famous actress, they'll make a huge fuss, right? As she's just like, don't worry, I'm wearing a disguise here, right? And he's just like, okay, just try not to stand out, alright? As he's like, seems like a pretty obvious disguise, like, I hope this all goes okay, right? But he starts to look around and it's like, oh, where did Tenmaku go off to, right? As we see that Tenmaku's over in a corner, as he has spiritually conjured up an umbrella, and he's just like, Hajime, I'm gonna take a rest until the car sickness dies down. Let me know when it's time to go to the next spot, right? As Hajime's just like, where did you get the umbrella? As he explains, he sort of just conjured it up. So we then see that Hajime gets out his phone and sort of starts to take pictures. He's just like, okay, it does make a decent composition here. He's like, these shots should be very useful for storyboarding. As we see, he's just taking a picture of the beach and some people's on it, right? And he's like, I didn't expect you to help with location scouting today, Kurai. He's like, I mean, aren't you super busy? As Kurai's just like, well, we have a day off from filming, and besides, and Hajime's just like, besides what? And Kurai's just like, oh, nothing, right? As we sort of just get that note that, yeah, wasn't she supposed to be super busy with no time to film the shore? And I guess this is what's happening, so that's sort of fun. So we see that Kurai sort of has probably got out either the storyboard or the script, and she's just like, well, let's get moving. We need to find a jetty, Nagisa's route to school, and a train station, right? She's like, and also for the last scene, we need a quiet spot on the beach where tourists won't wander into the shop, right? As Tenmaku's like, oh, I want to stop by City Hall too, right? When I called in to inquire, they said I could stop by to get detailed information about the rules of sort of shooting a movie, right? And Kurai's is like, oh man, Shinichi, you're so thorough with all this stuff, right? And Hajime's just like, well, yesterday was a big learning experience because I thought I was just going to be able to go out and shoot a movie, so this is all really important information that is really helping out being able to shoot the shore. Kurai's eventually just like, well, are all the other preparations going well with the camera's equipment and stuff? And Hajime's just like, no worries, we're going to use this as a camera. As he holds up a smartphone, right? And Kurai's just like, oh, I see, that makes sense. As we see a slightly recovered Tenmaku, as they call him, is just like, wait, isn't that your phone? You're saying we can shoot a movie with something that tiny? And Hajime is just like, yeah, you can. I mean, everybody can shoot a video. And he's like, in 2015, an entire movie for the big screen was shot on a cell phone, right? So, I sort of am guessing that this is a big fact, but being that I'm not a movie guy, right, I genuinely don't care about movies, and I'm sort of reading this series because it's sort of fun and educational in a way. Sort of like Food Wars was. Like, I, of course, didn't read that either, but I sort of know a little bit about food, so I'm guessing that series, and from what I know about it, has a lot of sort of like food science in it. But I wonder if there was like actually a movie that was shot in 2015 like this. I mean, I'm sure there was, and it'd be sort of fun to know what that is. So if you know, I don't know, drop that in the comments and let me know if you know what it is. So Tenmaku's just like, but movies should be shot on film, that unique warmth that fills that warmth that the film imbues, the sound of projectors' gears meeting the performance of the tape, right? And Hajime is just like, well, of course I prefer to shoot on film if that were possible, but we really don't have that kind of money, right? As we sort of learned that the perforations or the holes on the edges of the film, right? And eventually Hajime is like, well, smartphones are the answer, and we pretty much just get an explanation of it. It's a perfect solution for filming movies with no budget. And he's like, I'm sure it'll just be as good as filming on film. He's just like, not only can you edit and color correct, you can also buy a movie shooting app for like 10,000 yen, or not 1,000 yen. And eventually, Tenmaku's like, huh, that's really cool. But eventually, Kurai's just like, hey, director, why are you standing around? Come on, let's keep scouting locations. As knowing this, Hajime is literally just saying all this to himself as he's holding up his phone, because Tenmaku doesn't exist to her. That's just, again, just like a really funny note. So we see that Hajime and Kurai went to the town halls, they went to the tourism division, and they're talking around and they're meeting with the guy and apparently sort of getting all the information that Shinichi was wanting to get. So, or Shinichi Hajime, I don't know, whatever you want to call him, first or last name, I don't really care. So they're sort of looking around and he's eventually just like, oh, this is a good alley for shooting the movie. And Kurai's just like, yeah, it would be great for Nagisa's commute to school. I mean, Nagisa passes through here every day, right? And she sort of looks over to look at Hajime, but she's like, huh, director, where did you go? As he is just laying on the ground, like sort of holding his phone at an angle, just trying to find something else, as we get a little note of that he is obsessively checking different shot compositions, right? He's just like, no, that's not it, baby, this is, nope, this is it. I need to turn my phone, right? And he's like, Kurai, would you mind standing in front of that other ball over there? She does it, and he's just like, oh, that's right, about to your right, about 30 centimeters more, right? We'll use this angle for the shoot. As Tenmaku's like, weren't we not supposed to be standing out? As we see that Hajime is obviously just like making this a whole big deal. As we see a guy come out from around the corner, it's like, ooh, what's going on here? What's happening? What's going on, right? I really hope this dude just keeps showing up, sort of just every time something weird happens while they're filming, just, oh, what's going on? What's happening here, right? And eventually, we see that there's a cat laying around. I mean, this is looking like a really good-ass cat. I mean, cats are amazing. So, he's sort of just taking pictures and sort of thinking to himself, when we find a promising spot, we just don't want photos, right? It's also good to take as much of a video as possible, as we see that he's probably using this movie shooting app, and he's just filming this cat, right? And he's just thinking, because then during editing, we can use them as insert shots, right? As we get information of what a insert shot is, pretty much saying that it's footage that focuses on a specific thing or situation, roads, buildings, sky, plants, small animals, etc. And we get more of an idea pretty much saying, for example, you can use an insert shot at the start of a scene, as we sort of see like, not sort of like 5 or so panels, not like maybe sort of 6, but it's like film reels, as we see nothing else the first one, an insert shot of a town, and then about 4 shots of a guy just progressively walking. And it's just like to show a location vibe of, or the season going on, right? Also, if you connect 2 shots with a similar composition, it can feel like a character has suddenly teleported to a new location, right? And it's like, that's okay if it's the intention, as we see just a sort of shot of a guy walking down the street, and then a guy sort of suddenly standing in front of flower pots. as instead we see a guy walking down the street, this insert shot of the city, and then a guy standing here, right? Sort of saying that an insert shot can sort of break things up, and even if it's not filmed chronologically, just showing it can sort of give you an idea that time has passed and, oh, the character's here now. As we see that his two friends, Bino and Chino, sort of just appear to go like, what? And yeah, just in the bottom of this panel, which, okay, sure, they can show up, I really don't care. So, at this point, Hajime's just like, during the shoot, it's easy to get caught up in filming the actors. It's not uncommon to discover in editing that you don't have enough insert shots, so it's useful to take a bunch in advance, so right now, so you won't have to worry about it later. And he's just like, I remember reading that in a movie magazine. I mean, location scouting is really useful for this type of work too. I mean, this is really good. As we see that Hajime and Karai just start walking around some more. We see that they are walking by some shops, they are walking around on the beach, and just generally walking around, and eventually they get to a souvenir shop, right? And eventually one of them is just like, or I think it's actually Hajime from the way the next bubble leads, right? But he's just like, I think that covers most of it, but we still haven't found a perfect spot for that final scene. Maybe we should scout out this area on the map, as he's sort of just looking at his map trying to figure it out. But he's just like, come to think of it, I've never walked on the beach with a girl before, and not just any girl, right? As he sort of looks over at Kurai, and there's sort of what Shun Saeki is famous for drawing, right? Just like a very pretty image of Kurai, I guess you would call it. As she sort of here wipes her lip and sort of hands the ball over to Shinichi, like, want some, Shinichi? And he's like, huh? And she's just like, they had more of these, wait here, I'll go buy one. And he's just like, oh, of course, well, obviously, what was I thinking, right? And she's like, oh, the money, let me get it for you. And she's just like, don't worry about it. He's like, I can't do that, right? And Kurai's just like, don't worry, it's my treat. It's a tradition in the movie world for the lead actors to provide refreshments for the people, right? And Chi-Chi's just like, oh, thanks, right? And Shinichi's sort of just like going back to that side of his brain. He's just like, I'm here with Meki Karaki, the famous actress, right? As he's just sort of here, and all of a sudden, Kurai grabs his hand and is like, okay, then let's get rolling. As he starts to run around, and she's like, we've got to find a great location for that last scene. As she sort of just grabs Hajime, and we just see his heartbeats like, thump, 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 thump. As he's just like, ah! Well, eventually they get to the beach, right? And she's just like, director, and Hajime's just like, yeah, I think this is good. As here on pages 14 and 15, it's not like a double page spread or anything, but just the top of the two panels is just this really beautiful shot of the ocean of Japan and the beach, as Hajime is just here and just like, this is perfect for the last beach scene. As they're just standing here, and like I said, it's a really beautiful sort of banner image, right? I mean, I can easily see this being a banner image for anything if you just color correct out the word bubbles and all that stuff, right? As we see that Kurai's just thinking and look at it, and she's just like, wait, excuse me, there's something I personally really want to do, right? And she's like, actually, it's one of the reasons I wanted to come along for the location scouting, right? And she's like, please, it won't take long. And Hajime's just like, oh, sure, I don't mind if we get everything done, right? And he's like, I mean, we've practically got it done now. And she sort of says, well, in scene 5, there's a part where they set off fireworks in the schoolyard. And she's like, I want to set off fireworks here, right? And Shinichi's just like, huh? What are you talking about? And she's just like, wait here, I'll find a convenience store or something and go buy some fireworks, right? As it's a really sort of funny image, as we see the exact same shot of Shinichi's head, right? And the same exact sort of sign that I'll get to in a second. And Kurai running towards it, and in the second pile is Kurai looking at it. As we see this sign just says, no fireworks in this area, fires are prohibited, right? As she sort of looks at it and just stares, just like, oh crap, right? As she walks back really dejected to Hajime and just like, they don't allow fireworks here. And Hajime's just like, well, I guess not, right? And then we see she's just like frantically going around like, well then let's see what now. And he's just like, what's the matter, Kurai? Just calm down with all this, right? And she's just like, I want to do things that Nagisa does here in the ocean air because I still really haven't grasped her character. And Hajime's like, okay. And he's like, but you seem like you had a great grasp yourself. I mean, you even sort of had a semi-conversation with her. And he's just, I would get a little footnote just saying, oh, go look at chapter 2, right? And eventually, Kurai's just like, no, the role of Nagisa is so profound, right? I realize that there's more to deeper that I dive into it, and I need to get even closer to it, right? And she's like, I know, let me practice a different scene then. I'll wait here, right? And Hajame's just like, okay, I'll wait. As we see that she's sort of running around, and he's sort of sitting behind a no fireworks sign area, and he's just like, wow, she sure works hard, right? As all of a sudden, Kurai walks back up, and she's like, oh, thanks for waiting. And Hajime looks up like, oh wait, that was quick, what were you? As he looks up, and we get just a really fun reaction panel of his face just like opened, and just his eyes are just looking full on. He's just like, what? As we see that Kurai is here in a swimsuit, right? In a bikini top and bottom. It's like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? She's hopping down the wall to do it, and Hajime just freaks out. Is like, what? As he starts to blush, right? And he's like, whoa, what? As Tenmaku sort of, first time he's actually appeared in a good portion of this chapter, but Tenmaku appears, and he's just like, Hajime, keep quiet for a little while. Hameki is about to go into battle. And that's the end of the chapter, right? So, this chapter sort of holds a lot to it. It's more of that location scouting thing with the eventual sort of thing with Kurai here at the end, and sort of this narration of Tenmaku saying, it's time for her to go into battle. Now, I sort of am thinking about relating that to the first image of the chapter, which was the whole thing of the location hunting, where both Tenmaku and Shinichi were sort of dressed up and had their guns on them, right? So is Tenmaku sort of saying that she is going into a battle here to sort of say that she's going to battle the role or battle her sort of ideas and motivations for what this character is? Or is she going to do a battle with the location and filming everything? So what's really going on here, right? I also sort of have to mention that at this point, pretty much Kurai has definitely let go the idea of not being seen, so I'm guessing that she will probably be seen next chapter, if I had to guess, which is going to be interesting. I also sort of love the whole idea of the phone, and also Hajime sort of just like, oh my gosh, it's a girl, like what's going on here? So that's sort of fun. We learn about insert shots and what they are in this chapter, and yeah, stuff's a smartphone, and I really don't have a whole lot more to say about this chapter. It definitely filled the purpose it was supposed to. Now, last video I sort of talked about my problem with the series, not knowing much about the shore, and why that still persists in this episode. We get a little bit more of that with the whole idea of, alright, like I said, we need a place for her to walk to school, and all of that good stuff. So we do get sort of a bit more on it, but not sort of what I've been waiting for and sort of needing from this series. But altogether, there's no sort of really bad part of this at all. So yeah, with that, I guess this was a very good chapter of Tenmaku Cinema. I'm excited to see where it goes next time, and yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. If you've been enjoying the whole Tenmaku Cinema reviews, then please subscribe, drop a like, all of that good stuff. If you want to comment on that movie and it was made in 2015, please do so. And yeah, without further ado, it's going to be Glowplasma231 out.